So a year ago, I had a row with Oxford University. I'm probably among the very few who had this privilege because of circumstances which happened to me. So in this video, I want to reflect upon that part of history in my life, to think about what I could have done to prevent that conflict, and perhaps give you some insights as to what you shouldn't do in your university application. So let me introduce myself. My name is Zhi Heng. I applied to Oxford last year, and the college I applied to was Exeter College. Initially, I was aiming at a law course, so I applied for the Bachelor of Jurisprudence, which is the law degree offered by Oxford. So as you could probably tell by the title, I wasn't admitted into Oxford University, but I did create some sort of fuss while I was applying. So actually, I made a video previously on the real reason why Oxford rejected me, but I took the video down because I don't want to create any trouble. And because at that time, when I filmed that previous video, I was still quite angry about what has happened. So after a while, when I get to cool my emotions down, I reflected upon my mistake and I realized it should probably be taken down. So that's what I did. So right now, it's July 2024, which meant that almost a year has passed after I had that row with Oxford. So I've created enough distance for me to think logically about what has happened and think about who should really bear the most responsibility for this issue. So let me share with you what has happened. So the first time when I applied to UK universities, I was aiming to study for a law course. At that time, I was still in college. I was quite immature, so I was very easily influenced by my environment and the people around me. So at that time, I was very involved in the law society in my college because I like their kind of activism. If you know young people, they are attracted by activism. So I joined the law society. I met a few friends. One of them is the president of the law society in my college. So he sort of influenced me, the way I think about the world and in terms of my future career plan. So he was a nice guy and he talked me through the merit of applying for a law course in Malaysia. And I think it is not limited to Malaysia. I think across the world, the law profession has been seen as a very high status job, and people really want to apply for a law course. Doing a law degree is pretty much the prestigious thing to do. So at the time, I was quite attracted to the idea of being a lawyer. I did some research, read some law books, and I think that I could accept this line of work, and I find the books quite enjoyable. You get to think about things such as philosophy. That was an interesting period. So I applied to 5 UK universities for a law degree. The first is Oxford, the rest is LSE, UCL, King's and Manchester. But at the time, my chief aim was Oxford because the university was so prestigious, and I don't know of anyone who got into the course, but I thought I would be the first person to break that record in my batch. So actually, a few of my friends and seniors told me that it's better for you to apply for Cambridge law degree instead of Oxford's, but I thought not, because if you want to apply for Cambridge, you have to complete something called my Cambridge application. And because I was quite lazy, I didn't want to do it. And also because you need to pay an additional fee. So I thought that's not very fair. So I did not apply for Cambridge, and I applied to Oxford instead. But I was warned at the time that you need to get very good score for Elnet, which was the admission test for admissions to a law course in the UK. And only if you get a good enough result for your Elnet that you could be shortlisted for interview at Oxford. But I didn't care about the warning because since I was very young, I had been an academic achiever. I do not believe that any test could challenge me, not even IGCSE and A-levels. So I was very confident in my ability to do well at the test. So I proceeded with application to Oxford. I went on to the Elnet webpage. At the time, Elnet was run by Pearson VUE. I'm not sure whether it is still run by Pearson VUE now. But I registered my name and filled in my course and the universities that I intend to apply to. But at that time, I was still wavering between the universities I want to apply to. I was still considering Cambridge. So I made a fatal mistake, which is add the list of universities that Pearson VUE requires us to fill in. I filled in Cambridge instead of Oxford. Now, that was quite a deadly mistake because actually Pearson VUE wants to collect these universities' choices because these universities are what Pearson VUE is going to send your results to. So because I filled in Cambridge instead of Oxford, Pearson VUE is going to send my Elnet results to Cambridge instead of Oxford. So I'm sure you get what I mean. And the implication is huge. So what happened was that later on, I have fixed my mind on Oxford and I have decided to apply to Oxford, but I forgot to change my university list to remove University of Cambridge as one of my university choices and put in University of Oxford. So what happened later was that I completed my UCAS application. I submitted it to the universities. So I waited and waited until the day when I had to do the Elnet test. So I proceeded with the test. The test itself was alright. It was quite difficult. I wasn't quite used to this kind of test format before. It is like a logical reasoning test. So it tests your ability to think about a certain topic. You have many passages to read, and then once you read it, you are going to answer some questions for each passage. So that was what Elnet was about. But besides the multiple choice questions, you still have to complete an essay writing section. So the multiple choice section was marked by Pearson VUE, and the essay writing section was marked by the individual universities themselves. So I remembered doing not so well for the essay writing section because I thought I could use the toilet while I was doing the test, but turns out I shouldn't do it because time would not be compensated if I went to the toilet. So that was quite unfortunate, but that wasn't really the reason why I got rejected by Oxford. So after I've completed the Elnet test, I went on to study, and I was in college. So I was focused in doing my A-levels, and for a while I did not think about university admissions. And it went on until I received an email from Oxford saying that, very unfortunately, I wasn't shortlisted for the interview. So in the same email which they rejected me, they said that if I asked them, they would provide a reason for why they rejected my application. So that's what I did. I sent an email to them asking them to provide reason. So after around a month, I think, I couldn't remember, but it wasn't very brief. I waited quite a long time, around a month probably, and they replied to my email. So they sent me a PDF letter, and in that letter, it was said that I did not submit an Elnet result. So they couldn't find my Elnet result. So my score for the Elnet multiple choice section was 0. At that time, I was so confused. I did sit for the Elnet. You could check the Pearson VUE website. I did sit for the test, and I wasn't quite sure why Oxford did not receive my results. So as every normal person would do, I went on to check my Pearson VUE Elnet website, and I even forgot my password at the time. So I had to search through my junk folders and look through my notes, and I finally got my password. So I used the password and entered into the Elnet system, and I realized, oh, I made a mistake. I did not select Oxford as one of my university choices. That's why my Elnet results aren't sent to the Oxford system. But that's only one part of the mistake, because even if your Elnet result wasn't sent to Oxford, what Oxford would do is they would actually go to the Pearson VUE system themselves and check for your name and look at your results. Oxford told me so, and that raised an even more important issue, which was why, even after this series of action, was my result not revealed to Oxford. Because in my UCAS application and my Pearson VUE application, I have filled in all my personal details correctly, so the information on both sides should tally. So that's what I felt, and I sent an email trying to ask them in an aggressive way, because that was what my college university admissions department advised me to do. Obviously, you shouldn't be too aggressive, but do show them your dissatisfaction at being rejected for the wrong reason. Therefore, that's what I did. So I sent them a semi-aggressive email asking them why they haven't checked thoroughly and why did they not find my Elnet score. Because I did sit for the test, and it makes no sense for them to miss my Elnet score for no particular reason. But again, Oxford sent me another reply, and they said that it could be that your personal details are wrong, and therefore we could not find your Elnet score in the system. They advised me to check my personal details again and see if I have filled in any information wrong. So I thought it was quite unlikely that I have filled in the wrong information, but I went on to check nevertheless. And I found out the biggest issue in my Oxford University application of all was that I have filled in the names in the wrong order. So what has happened? In the Pearson VUE system where I applied to sit for the Elnet, I have filled in my name in the correct order. So I put my first name in the first name section and my last name in the last name section. And last name was the surname. But in my UCAS application, I did not fill in the correct name. I filled in my first name as my last name, and I filled in my last name as my first name. And that's why the last name on my UCAS application and the last name in my Pearson VUE system wasn't the same. Now I know this sounds very confusing to you when I said it, but feel free to pause the video and go back to what I said previously and you will understand what I mean. Basically, I filled in the wrong name in my UCAS application and therefore they could not find my name in the Elnet Pearson VUE system. So after I realized my mistake, I emailed Oxford and told them that I was sorry for my mistake and I shouldn't blame them. But it was quite a brief email, but it was basically me trying to admit my mistake, but at the same time try to save face for myself as much as possible. But I could tell that for the Oxford part, they were quite unhappy about it because they didn't reply to my apology. Therefore, my email was just left there. So I wasn't quite sure about the implication of this conflict, but it certainly reflected badly upon me because I hadn't checked properly and I sort of blamed them in my previous email. And afterwards, I told my university counselor and she just shook her head and told me I was quite unlucky. But it was completely my mistake, though at that time I didn't want to admit it. But after a year or so, when my emotions become quite detached from what has happened, I would like to extend my apologies. So if you're affiliated to Oxford in any way or you have any contact, just know that I feel sorry about what I did. And I certainly reflected on that experience and I thought to myself I would check properly and never make the same mistake again. So that's probably part of the reason why I decided to take a gap year, because I felt that I wasn't rejected due to the right reason, which meant that I did good for my exams, I did reasonably well for LNAT, but I just got rejected because I filled in the wrong name. Therefore, I decided to take a gap year and reapply again. The rest is history. I took history as my 4th A-level subject, getting quite good grades at the subject, and right now I got an offer from UCL. So that's my story with Oxford. I hope this video is helpful or at least enlightening to you. Just do remember to fill in your personal details correctly. I understand this is a very minority mistake, but sometimes people can make mistakes, so please do remember to fill in your name correctly. Especially if you have multiple names, like 3 to 4 names, it is wise that you understand how to fill in your name in the correct order, and hopefully you don't make the same mistake as me. So this is my repentance. If you find this video interesting or helpful, please do give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next video.